The room was loud enough to hide a lie. My body didn't. I froze at the door. Neon leaked across a glass wall and turned the floor into a shallow pool of magenta. The bass pressed 2 fingers against my sternum and asked if I wanted to dance or drown. The rooftop had been staged to look like a rumor. Palms and silver buckets, a DJ pretending not to be nervous, a skyline drawn with light and expensive patience. My purple wristband still felt wet from the stamp pad. It snapped my skin when I flexed, a tacky reminder that entry is never the same thing as belonging. I'd come to work the sound at a showcase that didn't need me yet. I wandered upstairs because somebody said the view could make even satisfied people greedy. I saw her reflection first, because Miami is a city that lets you look through glass and charges you feelings for it later. Sloane stood by the photo booth with her head tilted the way she tilts it when she won't let a real laugh mess up the plan. A man leaned in, like punctuation. He knew where the lens was. He always knows. The strip slid out and curled like a ribbon, warm ink glazing faces in a sequence I didn't want to read. Sloane reached for the paper, then didn't. Her hand hovered. Her eyes moved past the ring light to the window and found my reflection standing exactly where the night had hoped I wouldn't be standing. The freeze wasn't dramatic. No gasp, no dropped glass. Breath stopped short of my mouth and sat down in my throat like it paid rent. 2 women drifted past, and one of them said the art on the walls was more honest than the people wearing it. Another bass drop changed the weather. Somewhere on Collins, somebody's valet ticket learned humility. Upstairs, I let my heart rehearse fight and flight and then elect neither, which is how you discover the human body comes with a third option nobody glamorizes: freeze. I walked in 3 steps because I had to teach my legs the ground still believed me. The room answered with laughter that belonged to people who trusted tomorrow. I didn't. The DJ lifted a hand, and 1,000 pixels agreed to be impressed. Behind them, the ocean did that trick where it forgives you for thinking it's tame. I tipped my chin to the glass. Then I did the only thing that sounded like dignity in a language my body remembered. I turned. I walked out. The exit sign was honest, in a way nothing else was. The stair doors sighed like it had been waiting for me to need it. Ocean air shoved in with a taste like a quarter and a promise. I didn't look back. Not then. I let the bass become something happening to other people. I let the night turn into a hallway where a man could learn that leaving first is a kind of speech. Her heels caught the echo. Kai. Not a scream. My name asked to forgive its owner. I kept walking because I wanted the world to learn what it felt like when I didn't make it easy. The wind carried the perfume she uses to weaponize sweetness. It mixed with salt and metal and the memory of a storm that decided to stay on good behavior. Kai, please. Closer. I stopped at the rail because it looked like a sentence that ended with a period, not a question. The city was a procession of windows, pretending to be stars. A yacht horn bragged without being asked. Miami performs. Sometimes the audience is you. I rested my wristband on cold metal and felt the tacky edge pull my skin. Not here, I said. Not with other people's phones deciding what kind of main character we are. We stood under a string of bulbs that wanted to be polite. The pool below was brochure blue, pretending quiet. Sloane touched her throat like a woman rehearsing a gentler version of Now. Green satin caught the wind and behaved like an apology you could wear. A breeze lifted a strand of hair against her cheek. The city pretended to be kind. It was very convincing. It isn't what you saw, she said, which is not a sentence brave people use. I didn't see it, I said. I saw a camera make choices. I don't want the crowd to write the rest. We were playing. Basel makes you do photo booths. It's an accessory. Accessories don't know where the lens lives before it blinks. Accessories don't teach a body to freeze. I kept my voice low because refusing the stage is the only way not to be a spectacle. Talk like the floor isn't taking notes. The door opened with a hush that belonged to shoes that cost too much to be loud. Porter Hale, head of security, arrived the way good security arrives. Present, neutral, hydraulic. He took us in the way a medic takes a pulse. "Everything okay here?" he asked the air, so none of us had to admit ownership. "All good," I said. "We needed breeze." "Breeze is complimentary." He smiled, crisp and temporary. Quieter spot on the south balcony. Guest list still scanning through. A glance at my wristband. After 10, purple means VIP overflow. Don't let anyone swap yours. The sentence had a hook. I chose not to bite. Sloane watched his mouth for more information, like it might teach her how to spell future without vowels. "Porter," I said, buttoning the question in a harmless shirt. "If a guest loses something and wants the time they scanned in, what do you see?" "Timestamp and issuer on the floor," he said. "If it's their data, we help. Somebody else's? We say, please speak to the host." "Good policy," I said. He nodded, the way professionals nod when their job is to keep nights from becoming posts. "Holler if you need anything." He disappeared with a confident quiet. The door breathed. The bass changed moods. Sloane looked at me like the geometry of my face had rearranged itself while she was drafting a plan I hadn't auditioned for. "Why are you asking about timestamps?" she said. "Because time's the only part of the night that doesn't flirt," I said. "Because later you'll offer a script that uses accident and ran into and only a joke. And I need something boring enough to sleep on." "I didn't come here to hurt you," she said. "You came here," I said. The rest of the sentence is what we're arguing about. We took the south balcony, a pocket in the building where architecture remembers lungs. The ocean sent a low hush that told the palms to unclench. Below, the valet lane glittered and lied about patience. The sky was a black fabric pinned with airplanes. "Say the thing," I said. "Say the thing you chased me to say." "I didn't plan any of this," Sloane said. "No one plans to see themselves in a camera they weren't aiming at. Rex is loud and generous and stupid and useful. The photo booth was a dumb joke. You know how frames pretend you belong there if you stand close enough? That happened." "You're good at talking," I said. "It's your job. Tell me when you scanned in." 8:47, she said too quickly. "Lobby bar first." "And left?" I went up, said hi. Amaya said the booth would be fun. She ran out of conjunctions. "Amaya's here?" "West Side, white jumpsuit, hoop earrings. Looks like somebody who invented the word clean." "She did," I said. "Walk there with me." "To make a scene?" "To not," I said. "Ask the person who owns her images what they're for. Then we leave, or you do. I have to work." She nodded with the economy people use when the bill is coming. "Okay." The West Side was a promised land for people who sell promises. Screens looped futures. A curator explained meaning to a man auditioning for belief. The photo booth was a tidy column with a ring light that forgave skin and a printer with a polite cough. Amaya arranged a couple like a florist and printed a kiss they'd show strangers until the day they needed it back. She saw me and did the math friends do when they don't know whether to bring a hug or a fire extinguisher. "Kai," she said, not loud. "You running sound upstairs?" "After," I said. "Right now I'm troubleshooting language." Her eyes landed on Sloane and back with a clarity no degree gives you. Do I need to turn this off? No, I said. Could I ask a friend favor? Always, she said, and the word wore a blazer. If you have a strip that accidentally features my partner and a man she works with, I'd like to see the proof sheet. Not to post, not to take, to know what it is. Sloane arranged her hands in front of her waist like good PR for regret. Amaya considered like a lawyer with a hairpin. If they posed, it's theirs, she said. I can show you the proof sheet, timestamp. If she wants to share her strip, that's her call. That's fair, I said. She flipped a binder, plastic sleeves, tabs like disciplined memory, and slid out the proof sheet. Tiny frames like stamps that would never see a letter. She tapped a row. Here. Sloane and Rex in 4 versions of casual. Too close for strangers. Not close enough for court. Near enough for the camera to believe they wanted tomorrow. Time? I asked. 21:06, she said, reading the metadata sticker. Printer spit 2 seconds later. I don't have the strip. They either pocketed it or the floor did. Sloane closed her eyes as if the light had taken a short union break. We were joking, she told the table. Amaya slid the sheet back, not unkind. I can email you the contact sheet, Sloane. Watermarked. Personal reference. Not for sharing. Please, Sloane said, small. Amaya looked at me. You okay? I'm practicing, I said. For what? Leaving well. She nodded like somebody who's heard worse endings and survived them on behalf of strangers. We drifted away from the ring light. The crowd created a corridor because crowds are organisms that part for trays. A server's small moon slipped through. I took water because honesty is thirsty. At the lobby bar, a receipt nested under a glass like a co-conspirator. The font flexed. The tip ended in 00 the way math does when it wants to look like manners. I watched Sloane look and look away. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Tours have taught me what rounded tips predict. A night trying to become a single story in any language, paid and filed. My phone buzzed. A message from me sat above the lock screen, sent an hour ago. You at the showcase? Or already upstairs? The app answered in a blue word. Scene 10:37 p.m. It was 10:42. When I sent it, scene didn't exist yet. Time is the only honest narrator. I set the phone face down, felt hypocritical, forgave myself quick. Talk to me, Sloane said. I am, I said, just not for this room. Then where? The sidewalk, I said. Concrete doesn't gossip. Outside, Miami smelled like salt, sugar, and a surcharge. The breeze practiced being generous. A valet whistled a car into believing it was wanted. We found a quiet square where the wind did an impression of a fan and stopped when it got the reaction it wanted. What do you need from me? She asked. Facts, I said. Not the kind that humiliate. The kind that make sleep possible. What are you doing with a man who treats cameras like mirrors and mirrors like invitations? He's a donor, she said. He buys influence and calls it philanthropy. He wants to be near the part of the night that gets remembered. And I know how to stand in that part and say thank you without promising the wrong future. And the promises you can live with. She studied the concrete like truth might be stenciled there. I've flirted for progress. I've stood close enough for bad optics because access is a door with a small peephole. I have told myself you were busy, on the road, mixing strangers. And the part of me that wanted someone to notice went to the place where attention is cheap and expensive at the same time. The sentence was a confession and a budget. I inhaled a new deck chair. We're not in the part where I break a glass, I said. We're in the part where I write a boundary and decide if the paper can carry it. What boundary? 7 days, I said. You email your boss and team lead and say you accepted a guest pass from a donor in violation of policy. You step back from next Thursday's activation. You copy me. You don't mention me. Your choice, not my PR. You choose clean with me or loud without me. Her eyes flooded and then receded like a tide with a work ethic. And if I do? We split clean, I said. Cancel the co-signed lease you wanted in January. Refund me for the February trip deposit. Separate accounts, no posts, no whispers. We grow apart in private like people who still respect gravity. And us? Us is a museum, I said. We can buy tickets later, we don't live there. Upstairs, the DJ asked if I was good, which is musician for, can you fix it before my ego notices? I said I was functional and tuned the room until it remembered how to behave. Work is a clean religion when feelings are feral. Amaya reappeared near the booth with water and Switzerland in her expression. I emailed Sloan the proof sheet, she said. Watermarked, personal ref. If anyone forwards it, the watermark will do what watermarks do. She paused. I also sent you one frame you can own. The one where you're leaving the door frame. My angle caught your reflection. You look like someone learning a language that doesn't do applause. That's not an image I want to love, I said. Then don't love it, she said. File it under the night the floor told the truth. My phone buzzed again. New number. The text introduced itself like a handshake with rings. Rex Hargrove. Don't make tonight bigger than it is. Basel is small. People talk. I saved the message to a folder called Math. Screen captured the timestamp and replied with a sentence that didn't offer hinges. I won't discuss you. I won't discuss me. Good night. Then I blocked the number, not because I'm brave, but because my sleep is a small animal and easily spooked. Half an hour later, Sloan texted a screenshot of Amaya's email. Watermarked contact sheet attached. She wrote, I'm going to do what you asked. Give me the 7 days. I typed, do it because it's right, not to keep me. Then I put the phone away and made the room louder than my thoughts until the set changed hands and time retired from its shift. Morning in Miami pretends to be gentle after it kept you up. I walked past the pool where last night had washed its face and found coffee that didn't apologize for being awake. The receipt curled into a ribbon and cooled on the counter. I wrote the date on it with a pen because paper likes to be told who it is. Porter found me by the service elevator with a face that says he has seen every version of a night and still trusts doors. You all right? He asked, which is security for, did our building hurt you? I left early on purpose, I said. Best kind of early, he said. For what it's worth, your purple wristband scanned in at 20:51. You were upstairs before VIP overflow. Most folks last night didn't learn the difference between invited and inventive. He let the words rest. Policy exists so we can give dignity to room temperature. That's an art statement, I said. It's loss prevention, he said, and that was better. You need anything official? Talk to the host. I won't, I said. Thank you for the breeze. He nodded at the ocean like they were in a union and headed to a radio that knew his hands. I watched a gull steal a croissant, remembered the exit sign, and the way my body had voted with its feet before my mouth wrote any speeches. I tipped the barista in cash because I wanted the math to be human for once. We ate arepas in a courtyard where Shade had a budget. Amaya talked about Basel the way a medic talks about marathons. Everybody survives, but hydration is a character arc. I asked if she'd ever had someone demand a do-over because the camera told an inconvenient truth. All the time, she said. The camera is the only guest that refuses social pressure. She sipped something the color of sunshine and responsibility. Rex once tried to get me to delete a set where he looked bored next to an artist who wasn't boring. He offered exposure like we were still in 2011. I kept the work. I filed the email. I learned which corners he hates being seen from. You ever feel like the whole industry is a photo booth? I asked. You step in, you pick a face, you perform your prettiest lie. The machine prints permission. That's why I watermark, she said. So the permission, at least, has a provenance. She looked at me. What are you going to do? Stay clean, I said. Let Sloane choose the room she wants to live in. Revenge? Not my genre, I said. If the night needed punishment, the receipt already did it. She nodded like a person who had lent her forgiveness to worse mistakes and gotten most of it back. I'm archiving the set, she said. It's my right, not to expose, to keep the map honest. Rex won't like that. He doesn't have to, she said. Art doesn't require his mood. By day 3, Sloane sent me a draft. Subject: guest pass violation, Miami activation. She wrote about accepting a wristband from a donor, entering a VIP area without host approval, and how it compromised optics. She requested to step back from next Thursday's activation and asked that her teammate lead instead. She didn't name me. She didn't mention Rex by more than a donor. She copied me. She sent it. My phone showed a red receipt from her boss at 10:11 a.m. The blue dot dimmed and stayed dim. By day 5, Porter told me, casual, hallway voice, that comp privileges were paused for a certain investor across several venues after multiple guest pass anomalies. He didn't say a name because he doesn't traffic in names. He traffics in outcomes. Policy is where we keep our mercy so it doesn't look like favoritism, he said, and checked a door as if it were a pulse. By day 6, Sloane texted that she was pulled from the Basel follow-up week. HR called it an optics breach, she wrote. They're not interested in personal life. They want policy back on its feet. Good, I typed. Policy needs the exercise. Then I wrote the harder sentence. I'll send you the lease termination form. She responded with a single period, which is how dignity talks when it's tired and choosing to be real anyway. On day 7, before I could ask, I got a transfer confirmation for the trip deposit. No caption, no emoji, only math. The quiet parts of restitution rarely get applause. They earn sleep. I moved to a cheaper hotel with a window that didn't pretend to be an ocean. The ice machine was loud. The bed had a confidence it hadn't earned. I spread my clothes on a chair like a person who could leave again without negotiating. The wristband from the party sat on the nightstand next to the room key and the bar receipt with my handwriting on it. The neon reflection from a sign across the street painted open over the ceiling and blinked like the shortest sermon in town. I mixed 2 more shows that week and found it strangely easy to forgive speakers for what they did to the air. Work gave me exact knobs to turn and specific sins to cure. Sloane and I texted like diplomats who still believed in water. She sent proof of the lease cancellation. I sent a photo of the receipt for the boxes she asked me to ship. We kept nouns and verbs. We retired adjectives. It worked better than romance had lately. When the crowd yelled for one more song, I watched a strip of receipt curl off the printer at the bar and imagined all the math people use to talk about meaning. Numbers don't lie. People do their best. Somewhere in the building, a photo booth printed a new permission for a pair that would need it. I wished them better luck with honesty than we had paid for. Rex tried once more, through a different number with the same cologne. Heard you like rules. Why punish Sloane's career for optics? Let's be adults. I typed and deleted 3 paragraphs no judge would read. Then I sent, I'm not your audience. The rest is between her team, and policy. He replied with a thumbs up that felt like a middle finger in business casual. I blocked the new number and named the folder where the screenshots live. Noise. Sometimes we glamorize confrontation because it photographs loud. The night taught me that the quietest line you draw is the one you never have to post. I didn't publish. I didn't threaten. I let other people's systems do the work they were allegedly built to do. If it sounds boring, that's because safety is a genre that refuses glitter. After the last showcase, I walked the beach before dawn. The ocean was taking inventory. Birds argued about jurisdiction. The city's skyline exhaled blue. I took the purple wristband from my pocket, stretched it until it remembered being elastic, and let it fall into a trash bin shaped like a decision. I kept the bar receipt because paper likes to be told what happened and when. I kept Amaya's email because light deserves an archive. I kept a photo of my reflection leaving a door frame because sometimes you need to prove to yourself that your back looks like resolve. Sloane met me once more at the edge of the sand, where shoes change their minds. She wore a denim jacket over compromise. I did the 7 days, she said. I saw, I said. I wanted you to know that I saw me too, she said. Not just the crowd seeing me. It's different. It is, I said. Could we? She let the question exhale and die gently. We could be kind from a distance, I said. We could not practice again what we're not good at. She nodded. I'm sorry, she said one more time. Not like a receipt this time, but like a sentence finished. We parted with a hug that had nothing to prove, and 2 people inside it who finally believed that. The week ended the way Miami ends things, with a sunrise trying to be forgiven for last night. I packed a case of cables and a notebook that had collected more verbs than tears. I mailed Sloane's boxes and kept my copy of the tracking numbers because paper trusts you more when you earn it. Amaya texted a photo of the skyline from her angle. No people, only surfaces deciding to be honest for a frame. Porter nodded me out the employee's entrance without making me explain my face. I tipped the bellman and wrote the date on the receipt because the ribbon curl felt like punctuation that wanted to be read out loud. At the airport, a kid pulled on his mother's sleeve and pointed at a plane like it was a whale. The mother said, "It will be loud, but we'll be okay." And I considered adopting that sentence for a while. The gate agent called families with small children, then the rest of us, and I let myself be ordinary on purpose. On the runway, Miami waved its glass at me one more time, and I declined to apologize for surviving without spectacle. The plane lifted. The ocean practiced being infinite. I closed my eyes, and for once the bass inside my chest decided not to audition for trouble. This is what I know about walking into a room and freezing. Your body will tell the truth before your mouth earns the courage. If you're lucky, a door will be nearby. If you're luckier, you'll remember the language of leaving without turning it into a speech. I didn't win by catching anybody. I didn't win by posting anything. I won by leaving right. By taking the conversation to a hallway where the walls didn't clap. By writing a boundary on paper that could carry it. By letting policy be the bad cop. By choosing the quiet version of revenge that looks like self-respect. There are other stories. In some, the party becomes a courtroom, and strangers become a jury that wants entertainment more than justice. In some, the camera is a weapon. In some, the weapon is a sentence you can't take back. This one chose smaller tools: a timestamp, a watermarked contact sheet, a bar receipt, a breeze. They were enough. Enough doesn't trend. It lets you sleep. So here's the question I carried down the stairs past the exit sign and the ocean that was pretending to be patient. If you walk into the party and your body freezes and you walk out first so truth can breathe in private. When the person you loved runs after you and the night gives you policy instead of fireworks, is that justice smaller, or finally the exact size a life can live with? I don't need your answer to match mine. I just hope, if you ever feel your pulse choose the freeze option, that you'll remember there's a third way the movies forget. Not fight, not flight. Leave. Leave early enough that your silence becomes a sentence. Leave with a receipt that remembers when the leaving happened. Leave so the next time someone tries to hand you a wristband for a room you don't want anymore, your hand knows how to stay empty. I kept a list of small dignities in the Notes app because paper was busy elsewhere. The bartender who didn't ask why my hands shook. The security guard who offered directions instead of opinions. The photographer who knew the difference between owning an image and weaponizing it. The sea breeze that refused to be impressed by anyone's last name. On a bus to Wynwood, I watched a kid press his face to the window and count murals out loud. He wasn't grading them. He was proof that attention can be generous without being naive. I thought about how many rooms I had entered in my life with a sound check badge and no map, and how often the quickest way to fix a howl was not to twist knobs, but to move the microphone 3 inches and make the room honest with itself again. A drummer once told me timing isn't about landing on the beat. It's about leaving the last note at the right time. I wrote that down and wondered if that's all this was. An exit with timing that finally made sense. There was a woman at the cafe who stirred her coffee like an orchestra cue, and I imagined a life where all the cues were soft like that, and none of them required a jury. I tried to write the story as a list of invoices: date, service, amount paid, balance remaining. The balance, it turned out, was sleep. I paid it with silence and found the interest rate finally went down. At baggage claim, a man filmed the carousel like it was a stream that might yield a fish if he watched long enough. I admired his optimism and practiced being the opposite, leaving without proof and trusting that the proof I had was already enough. I folded the wristband once, twice, a third time, until it remembered being temporary. Some things only get lighter when you admit they were never meant to be permanent jewelry. Sloane texted me a photo of a blank wall in her new apartment with a caption that read, "Starting over." I replied with a photo of a window that didn't face the ocean and wrote, "Starting smaller." Neither of us added a heart. Not every start needs punctuation. Amaya sent a link to a quiet gallery show of photographs of empty rooms after parties. The floors were honest. The chairs looked like witnesses no one called. I stood in front of a print of a doorway and decided to like doorways more than destinations for a while. Porter later emailed a generic notice about updated guest policies across partner venues, with bullet points that were boring on purpose. I saved it in a folder called Architecture, because that's what rules are when you use them to hold up a ceiling instead of stab someone. On the flight home, someone's playlist leaked from their earbuds, a song that had been ours briefly. I didn't flinch. I let the airplane harmonize with it until the melody had to behave. Sometimes the cure is volume. Sometimes it's patience. I kept waiting for the urge to tell the story out loud in rooms that paid for stories. It never arrived. Or maybe it did, and the exit sign spoke first. At a red light, the driver next to me drummed the steering wheel and smiled at nothing. I took it as a benediction from the church of minding your own timing. I kept a list of small dignities in the Notes app because paper was busy elsewhere. The bartender who didn't ask why my hands shook. The security guard who offered directions instead of opinions. The photographer who knew the difference between owning an image and weaponizing it. The sea breeze that refused to be impressed by anyone's last name. On a bus to Wynwood, I watched a kid press his face to the window and count murals out loud. He wasn't grading them. He was proof that attention can be generous without being naive. I thought about how many rooms I had entered in my life with a sound check badge and no map, and how often the quickest way to fix a howl was not to twist knobs, but to move the microphone 3 inches and make the room honest with itself again. A drummer once told me timing isn't about landing on the beat. It's about leaving the last note at the right time. I wrote that down and wondered if that's all this was. An exit with timing that finally made sense. There was a woman at the cafe who stirred her coffee like an orchestra cue. And I imagined a life where all the cues were soft like that, and none of them required a jury. I tried to write the story as a list of invoices: date, service, amount paid, balance remaining. The balance, it turned out, was sleep. I paid it with silence and found the interest rate finally went down. At baggage claim, a man filmed the carousel like it was a stream that might yield a fish if he watched long enough. I admired his optimism and practiced being the opposite, leaving without proof and trusting that the proof I had was already enough. I folded the wristband once, twice, a third time, until it remembered being temporary. Some things only get lighter when you admit they were never meant to be permanent jewelry. Sloane texted me a photo of a blank wall in her new apartment with a caption that read, "Starting over." I replied with a photo of a window that didn't face the ocean and wrote, "Starting smaller." Neither of us added a heart. Not every start needs punctuation. Amaya sent a link to a quiet gallery show of photographs of empty rooms after parties. The floors were honest. The chairs looked like witnesses no one called. I stood in front of a print of a doorway and decided to like doorways more than destinations for a while. Porter later emailed a generic notice about updated guest policies across partner venues, with bullet points that were boring on purpose. I saved it in a folder called Architecture, because that's what rules are when you use them to hold up a ceiling instead of stab someone. On the flight home, someone's playlist leaked from their earbuds, a song that had been ours briefly. I didn't flinch. I let the airplane harmonize with it until the melody had to behave. Sometimes the cure is volume, sometimes it's patience. I kept waiting for the urge to tell the story out loud in rooms that paid for stories. It never arrived. Or maybe it did, and the exit sign spoke first. At a red light, the driver next to me drummed the steering wheel and smiled at nothing. I took it as a benediction from the church of minding your own timing. I kept a list of small dignities in the Notes app because paper was busy elsewhere. The bartender who didn't ask why my hands shook. The security guard who offered directions instead of opinions. The photographer who knew the difference between owning an image and weaponizing it. The sea breeze that refused to be impressed by anyone's last name. On a bus to Wynwood, I watched a kid press his face to the window and count murals out loud. He wasn't grading them. He was proof that attention can be generous without being naive. I thought about how many rooms I had entered in my life with a sound check badge and no map, and how often the quickest way to fix a howl was not to twist knobs, but to move the microphone 3 inches and make the room honest with itself again. A drummer once told me timing isn't about landing on the beat. It's about leaving the last note at the right time. I wrote that down and wondered if that's all this was. An exit with timing that finally made sense. There was a woman at the cafe who stirred her coffee like an orchestra cue, and I imagined a life where all the cues were soft like that and none of them required a jury. I tried to write the story as a list of invoices: date, service, amount paid, balance remaining. The balance, it turned out, was sleep. I paid it with silence and found the interest rate finally went down. At baggage claim, a man filmed the carousel like it was a stream that might yield a fish if he watched long enough. I admired his optimism and practiced being the opposite, leaving without proof and trusting that the proof I had was already enough. I folded the wristband once, twice, a third time, until it remembered being temporary. Some things only get lighter when you admit they were never meant to be permanent jewelry. Sloane texted me a photo of a blank wall in her new apartment with a caption that read, "Starting over." I replied with a photo of a window that didn't face the ocean and wrote, "Starting smaller." Neither of us added a heart. Not every start needs punctuation. Amaya sent a link to a quiet gallery show of photographs of empty rooms after parties. The floors were honest. The chairs looked like witnesses no one called. I stood in front of a print of a doorway and decided to like doorways more than destinations for a while. Porter later emailed a generic notice about updated guest policies across partner venues, with bullet points that were boring on purpose. I saved it in a folder called Architecture, because that's what rules are when you use them to hold up a ceiling instead of stab someone. On the flight home, someone's playlist leaked from their earbuds, a song that had been ours briefly. I didn't flinch. I let the airplane hum harmonize with it until the melody had to behave. Sometimes the cure is volume. Sometimes it's patience. 6132.